Not, but with Robert De Niro, who directed a film, and literally, and I was, I got the job, and
everyone's worked with De Niro.
And then I remember getting this phone call months later. I mean, it was quite a rigorous audition process, and then I've got a phone call a couple of months later going, "Oh, by the way, great news! We've managed to get you a visa and a SAG card." And I was like, "What?" So there was an option that I wasn't going to be able to do the job. I hadn't sort of realised that there was a prospect that it wasn't going to work. But apparently, it took literally bribing people I'd worked with in London before to write letters saying that I was of astounding talent. So I blagged and lied and bribed my way to a SAG card, which is disgusting.
I love that people in England write like this, because you're like this. Astounding. Okay, I think everyone has enough pictures for that. Can we hold off? And P.S., can you email those to me? So I want to start at the beginning with Les Mis. Tom, I mean, this show has been seen by, let me get the facts straight, more than 60 million people in 42 countries in 21 languages over the last 28 years. I know there's been talks about bringing it to the big screen before. What made you want to take on such a massive undertaking?
Can I say first? I say thank you for that reaction. People wonder why I love actors. With that reaction like that, are you surprised?
I told him too. I don't usually see people stand for directors. That was amazing. No, I'm serious. That was amazing.
You know,
It was a good movie.
I was finishing the King's Speech, and I was very struck. I was very struck when I screened that film, how it made people feel, and people had a very emotional connection to the King's story, and so I really wanted to find another story to tell that would have a very emotional relationship with its audience, and I suppose Les Miserables is famous for its emotional relationship it provokes with its audience. I mean, every time you go, you're sitting down and the person behind you is saying, "I've seen it for 11 times," or, and so not only is it emotional, the musical has offered this opportunity for people to re-experience strong emotion again and again and again, and I found that very intriguing. So I think it was the emotion that drew me towards it. But I think it's particularly the fact that when we watch the show and hopefully the film, we cry not just for the characters, but for suffering in our own life or those closest to us. That the film makes us think about. But the extraordinary thing about the musical is that it somehow processes some of that suffering and leaves us feeling a little bit better about it. A good friend of mine told me recently that he'd lost his father in October, and I was like, "You shouldn't see the film." The death of Valjean is not what you want to go through. And he said, "No, I'll see it. And he said afterwards, I said, I'm sorry you had to," and he said, "No, the strangest thing is, at the end of seeing the film, I felt better about my dad and I felt closer to my dad." And that's the extraordinary thing about this story, this wonderful story that Victor Hugo created 150 years ago, and why we keep coming back to it, because it seems to make sense for some of the hardest things in our lives, and that's the best thing a story can do.
Can I jump in here for a second?
No.
No, I'm I've got a part answer Tom's the question that you asked Tom, because I met Tom about why he did it. I met Tom about 2 months after he won the Oscar. I was stalking Tom for the part. You guys will know the feeling. So I was literally, but, before it even signed on, I was like, "Man, I want to audition for you." And he was like, "Whoa, just setting on, fella." And I remember thinking, why are you doing this, Tom Hooper? You have just won an Oscar. You don't take on a movie musical. We all know that that's the hardest thing to pull off. There is part crazy about this guy. He's part crazy in a good way, and I say that in what Norman Jewison was saying today at the AFA luncheon. He said, he was talking to all the filmmakers from this year, and he said, "You're all crazy, and we need crazy, and thank you for being crazy in the best sense." And courage, which is something in this business we all need. But when you have a director who takes on a huge risk when they don't need to take it, and then adds things like, and we're going to sing live.
Yeah.
And I know the suggestion is to have a script that is actually 70% sung and 30% dialogue. We're going to do it also. All these, he just took so many risks, and the audacity of all those risks all mounted up to this incredible achievement. And I think you have single-handedly redefined the movie musical. So,
yeah. Legit.
And where did you even begin? Because I know Alan Parker tried to make this into a movie for years. Did you have a script? I mean, obviously there's the musical script, but one of the things I love is that there are some very good changes to the film script.
I mean, there was the first draft that I read by Bill Nicholson. He'd actually made the script as dialogue interspersed with songs, and by doing that, he'd followed the pattern of many of the great movie musicals. In fact, only 3 musicals that I can think of are sung through. That's Tommy, Evita, and The Umbrellas of Cherbourg, the French musical. So it's very rare to do sung through, and the first sort of big decision, I suppose, was to commit to honouring the way the musical's constructed, which is sung through. And I think I did that because it's very tricky when you alternate, because you're constantly having these gear changes between 2 orders of realism, you know, between the naturalism of dialogue like this and then the slightly heightened style of communicating through song. And in the end, I felt that reminding the audience constantly that there are 2 different levels of reality was not helpful to the musical form. And I felt maybe, you know, if you just commit to communicating through song as the primary form of communication, that the audience will actually settle and accept it more. But it was certainly something that that there was probably some nervousness about, because there's so, you know, you can't go to the studio, look at all the list of the box office results of the sung-through musical. You know, it's a pretty tough list. You know, The Umbrellas of Cherbourg was fantastic. But you know, I'm pleased I did it that way. But the real answer to where to begin, it was all about the casting with this. I mean, I would not have made the film. I personally would not have made the film if Hugh Jackman did not exist. Think about the casting challenge. You know, this is a tenor part, so kind of high in the male voice, but he also needs to be legendarily strong and a huge guy. That in itself is, you know, it's going to be a pretty short list of people who are going to be able to play a legendarily strong guy with this kind of vocal range. On top of that, I needed a genuine musical theatre star, a genuine film star, a great film actor. But the most important thing is, I think Hugh has an extraordinary, I don't want to embarrass him, but he has an extraordinary kindness in him. I mean, you know, I went through 12 weeks of shooting, whether he was up to his chest in seawater, standing on a mountain and below 0 temperatures, whether, you know, however hard he was working, he was always gracious to the people, the actors and the crew around him. I mean, always. Like, I never saw him snap at anyone ever. And, you know, in the beginning you think, yeah, you know, he's a lovely guy, but let's see, you know. Let's, you know, I mean, it'll rub off and then he'll be human like everyone else. But this guy, we never got to that point. And he has a kind of grace in him that I felt for the part of Valjean, who's a very spiritual man, who takes his very spiritual path through most of the movie. There was something in Hugh that's important. And the most important of that is that Hugh makes goodness interesting. And now, you know, as actors, you know, often the good guy is the toughest guy to play because good can be bland, but Hugh makes good vividly interesting, and that was why he was so essential.
And he's hot. Why are we glazing over that part?
And for the actors, can you tell me how you went about winning these roles? Because, I mean, you had to audition, didn't you?
Yeah, everybody auditioned for the film. I think it's fantastic. I've never been afraid to audition. I'm not always good in auditions, but I always think it's a good thing. My audition, I'll give you very briefly. I went to my singing teacher, the legendary Joan Lader in New York, and just to warm up, I turned up, and when I came out from my singing lesson, the wheels had been taken off my bike. So I literally was like, I've got 20 blocks and I've got 15 minutes, right. So I ran with the frame of my
Welcome to New York, bitch.
Hey, here for Valjean. Okay, I'll just put this in the corner here. It's fine. No one's going to steal. I'll leave it. It's fine. Gravitas, oh God, no worries, Valjean. Here we go. And then we proceeded to have a 3-hour audition. It was actually a great, and it's the only audition in my life I've asked the director to leave. I literally said, Tom, I've got to put my kids to bed. Seriously. But it was thrilling because with Tom it was about a 15-minute normal audition. Then it was a workshop. It became, I think I was the first person you'd auditioned. So then I could see Tom's mind, like, all right, now we're going to shoot this. So he goes, great. He had been sitting at the back of the room, and then it became all right, okay, you can start the song again. And this time, don't worry about me. We just start maybe a little quieter because I see this and action. That was my experience.
Ironically, the guy who stole your bike went to prison for 19 years.
He left a frame behind.
He's so clever.
Actually, the weirdest part of that story is that Hugh Jackman rides a bike.
Yeah.
That surprises me.
My singing teacher says that. If you can't swim before singing, riding a bike is the second best thing because your breath, it's moving your legs, it's sings about breathing. So I warm up either walking, swimming, or riding a bike.
Yeah.
Swearing around the streets of New York. It's good.
Yeah.
And Eddie, for you, aside from the bike being stolen, did you have a similar situation?
It was a very odd scenario. I've been lucky enough to work with Tom about 7 years ago on a piece for HBO called Elizabeth with Helen Mirren, and I'd also, all of us in the cast had an experience. All of us in the cast had an experience of having seen Les Mis when we were kids or fallen in love with it. And when I was 7, I saw it and I wanted to be Gavroche. He was a legend and a rock star. And as everyone has, I'd been back to see it a couple of times, and that emotional relationship had changed with it. I heard Tom was making it. I was in North Carolina playing a Texan meth addict paedophile with a limp.
Like you do.
It was a night shoot, and as you can imagine, we're in a field in Winnebago, and a couple of hours, there was a lunch break or something in the middle of the night, and I thought, go on, I've always enjoyed singing, I know Tom was making it, so on my iPhone, I dressed as a cowboy, did a rendition of Empty Chairs and Empty Tables, really just to send to my agent to go, look, I enjoy singing, I'd love to get into the running for this if possible. And my agent emailed straight back going, I've sent it to the head of the working title.
Oh, Jesus.
I was like, sweet Jesus, mother of God. If I'd known that, I would not have been dressed as a cowboy. I would have tried it a little. So, but from then on, I jump into what for all of us was like a horrible series of X Factor or American Idol. It was like, we ended up having to do it in front of Cameron McIntosh, Claude Michel Schoenberg, singing these songs to the guys that wrote these songs was like, and also reinterpreting them, because that's why we were in the room, was to have to come and go, no, for film we're going to try it like this, and to watch their sort of shocked faces, just sort of butcher their master. It was terrifying, but wonderful.
Tom, please tell us that will be on the DVD.
Yeah, right?
That audition.
Well, I'm pleased to finally understand why he wore that. Yeah, because I get it. I mean, I know that actors can be quite clever sometimes. Playing an Undertaker, I'm going to wear black. Or I'm playing a period costumes, I'm going to get my oldest jacket. And I'm playing Marius, I'm going to be a cowboy. Despite that, I gave him the job.
Hugh, you mentioned some auditions that didn't go so well that you've had in the past. Would you guys be willing to share with us your worst audition experience?